Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Port Colborne Council meeting for March the 8th. I'll call this meeting to order at this time. I do have regrets from Councillor Clayliff. She will not be joining us this evening. And in the chamber tonight is Councillor Bruno. At this time, can I call on staff to bring up our national anthem?
Oh, Canada, Canada, native land, to be true love in all of us command. Can't tombarse corte le pea, il se corte la qua, non ispare to Naples.
Again, thank you to our local talent from McKay School. Niagara region is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Wendoronk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the First Credit Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The City of Port Colborne stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Council, there is no proclamations this evening. At this time, if I can call on Councillors Bodner and Bagu to adopt the agenda as amended, which is with regards to bylaw 20.4, which was an addendum added. So this is the adoption of the agenda as amended. Any questions? Seeing none, everyone raise their hand that's in favor or opposed. Okay, or in favor, I mean. That's carried. There's nobody opposed. I don't have any disclosures of interest, just to confirm. Does anyone have a disclosure of interest tonight? Seeing none, that's good. Approval of the minutes. Can I have Councillors Beauregard and Desmarais move the regular meeting of Council February the 22nd, 2022? Any questions on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. And those are carried. At this time, we have items 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, 8.5, 8.8, 9.4. I'm going to ask somebody to move 9.5 for support on that one. And we have bylaw number 20.3 for a question from one of the councillors, and under the motions 17.1. Those are all being drawn out. If I can have Councillors Wells and Danch move the remainder of the items that aren't being lifted. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. We have no presentations this evening, no delegations, so I'll get into my mayor's report. The Niagara Region Public Health will be holding vaccination clinics in Port Colborne at the Port Colborne Visitor Center, 76 Main Street West, on the next 3 Fridays, which will be March 11th, 18th, and 25th. They will operate from 9:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. You can go online and book an appointment or walk in. Children 5 and up can get their first or second dose, and those 18 over can get any dose. Please do your part to keep safe and get your vaccination. Last week, along with most municipalities in the Niagara region, we raised the Ukrainian flag to show that Port Colborne stands united with the people of Ukraine, as well as democracy and freedom. We ask that you please keep those in the Ukraine in your thoughts and prayers. The Ontario, or the municipalities of Ontario, municipalities in every part of Ontario stand with the people of Ukraine in the face of unconscionable tragedy, invasion, and war. This is a statement from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, on the conflict in Ukraine. AMO has come out today with some how you can help information. You can go to the Canadian Red Cross, donate to the Ukraine Humanitarian Crisis Appeal. The Government of Canada will match all eligible donations not exceeding $100,000 made by individual Canadians to the Ukraine Humanitarian Crisis Appeal between February the 24th and March 18th, and the government will go up to a maximum of $10 million. We have the Canada-Ukraine Foundation Humanitarian Appeal, Global Medic, supporting those exiting Ukraine into neighboring countries, and they're raising funds to facilitate this operation. UNICEF, emergency response to this conflict. UNICEF supports health, nutrition, HIV prevention, education, safe drinking water, sanitation, and protection for children and families caught in the conflict in eastern Ukraine. United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the UNHCR Canada. The UNHCR Canada provides shelter, food, water, medical care, and other life-saving assistance to refugees around the world. In a statement on February the 24th, it has said it is working with the authorities, UN, and other partners in Ukraine, and is ready to provide humanitarian assistance wherever necessary and possible. Today is International Women's Day. I had the opportunity last Friday to attend an online event hosted by the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce recognizing International Women's Day. International Women's Day is a global day celebrating the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. The day also marks a call to action for accelerating gender parity. The theme for International Women's Day 2022 is #BreakTheBias. Imagine a gender equal world, a world free of bias, stereotypes, and discrimination, a world that is diverse, equitable, and inclusive. Together we can forge women's equality. Collectively, we can all #BreakTheBias. In Port Colborne, we are proud of the women who are business owners and their employees who make our city a great place to live. We are equally proud of the women who work for the city administration, public works, firefighting, culture, bylaw enforcement, communications, human resources, as well as those that sit as members of City Council. This year is a municipal election year. Women interested in municipal politics are encouraged to participate in Niagara Region's Seat at the Table. Niagara Region is partnering with the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce, Women in Niagara, City of St. Catharines, the YWCA, Future Black Female, Services for Humanity, Muslim Senior Circle, and Niagara Region's Women's Advisory Committee to encourage more diversity in elected councils in 2022. Niagara Region's Seat at the Table program aims to address barriers that women and gender diverse people face when running for municipal office, while also improving the environment once elected. Despite being just over half of the Niagara population, women are underrepresented in local government, especially in senior leadership. The program consists of 4 workshops that will help women, gender diverse people, and underrepresented groups feel informed and educated when making the decision to run for local government or supporting a female or gender diverse candidate. Those who are successful in being elected will then be invited to participate in 3 sessions in 2023. Niagara Region Seat at the Table will provide participants with the knowledge and skills to run a successful campaign and support throughout their term if elected. The first session, taking place virtually on Thursday, April the 7th at 6 p.m., will be open to all women and gender diverse people across all 12 municipalities. The workshop will inspire and prepare women from underrepresented backgrounds to run for election and change the face of elected councils to better represent the people of Niagara. You must register by April 5th for the first session on Niagara Region's website. At the end of this session, those who are interested in running for municipal government can apply to participate in 3 additional workshops, including getting organized to run, working with other levels of government, policy and planning, and managing public scrutiny, harassment, addressing bias and discrimination. These workshops will run smoothly from April to June 2022. I encourage the women of Port Colborne to give serious consideration to putting their name forward for election to a seat on our City Council. The Niagara Regional Police Service will be hosting the second annual NRPS Spring Food Drive in various Niagara communities. Food insecurity is often supported in the community over the traditional holiday seasons through collections and drives, but the need is year-round. COVID-19 has also been difficult for many people in our community. Many of the challenges that have come with COVID-19 have compounded the demand for food products to support families. Our food drive supporting Port Care's food bank will happen on Monday, March the 14th from 9 to 3 at Sobeys on West Side Road. We ask that you please give generously. Next week is March break for students across Ontario, and there are plenty of activities right here in Port Colborne to keep your kids busy all week. At the library, take and make crafts are available, as well as STEAM activity kits. Try to solve the new virtual escape room, and for the teens, spend some time reading a book and providing us with a book review. You can earn 5 hours of community service for each review. Take a walk through the museum's Heritage Village to get a glimpse of Port Colborne's past. If you missed the Humberston Hunt Goose Chase, the museum still has paper copies available for pickup from their mailbox, and families can work together to complete them. At the Valley Health and Wellness Center, the Port Colborne Optimist Club are sponsoring a free skate on Wednesday, March 16th from 1:30 to 3:30. There is regular arena programming with other skate times available for families. Also check out the YMCA programming at www.ymcaofniagara.org. And as the weather improves and our days get longer, take a walk or ride a bike along our many trails. A reminder that on Sunday, March the 13th, we spring forward our clocks, giving us more daylight at the end of the day. This is also the perfect time to check the batteries in your smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. And finally, a sure sign of spring is the opening of the Welland Canal. On Sunday, March the 20th at 7 p.m., St. James and St. Brendan's Anglican Church at the corner of King and Charlotte Streets will host their annual Mariners Service. This service is an opportunity to wish our seafaring workers safe travels in 2022. Residents of Port Colborne can then join me on Thursday, March 24th for our Top Hat ceremony at the Lock 8 Pavilion. We will start at 8 a.m. with a fair trade coffee and hot chocolate, followed by the ceremony at 8:30, where we welcome the captain of the first downbound ship of the season and present him with our traditional top hat. I'd like to thank you at this time, and we ask that you please stay safe. Are there any questions with regards to the mayor's report? Okay, seeing none. Council, just with regards to what I talked about, the conflict in the Ukraine, I do have a motion I'm going to be bringing forward tonight, so we're going to ask for some changes to the rules with regards to that, because I think it's time sensitive. So I'll get to that when we come up under notices of motion. Okay, so at this time, we have Regional Councillor Butters. I'll just be bringing her into the meeting. There we are. Good evening, Councillor.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you, and welcome again.
Good, thank you. It's good to see everyone. First off, happy International Women's Day. I want to thank you, Mayor Steele, for covering so well the Seat at the Table program that the Niagara region is sponsoring coming up this spring. I'm part of that women's committee, and I'm very, very pleased with the fact that we got the funding for this program, and hopefully it will really encourage a lot more diversity and a lot more opportunity for lots of different kinds of folks to run in the municipal election coming up. So I want to thank you for covering that so well. Actually, you covered most of what I was going to cover, or many of the things that I wanted to talk about too. So I will tell you that this week is a busy week. Today was Public Works and Public Health standing committees, and tomorrow is Corporate Services and Planning and Economic Development. of course, urban boundary expansion pieces are still a pretty hot topic at the planning side of things. So I'm kind of looking forward to see where the different delegations where that's going to go tomorrow afternoon. I really want to encourage those who have not yet gotten vaccinated to take advantage of the Port Colborne clinics. That it really is your best bet to be safer from COVID. There's still a lot of it around. Our numbers are going down, which is very encouraging, but there's still a lot of COVID out there. And those who are not vaccinated risk serious illness. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to take any questions, and I hope you all have a really good meeting tonight.
Great, thanks, Barb, appreciate that. I hated stealing your thunder, but staff is so good here at the city that they put all that together for our report. But you and I work very well together, so bringing that
We
1-2
do.
punch is a good thing. So, any questions to the regional councillor? I don't see any. Barb, again, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Next, we have staff remarks. Are there any staff members with information for any particular councillor or just general information for council? Nothing here, guys? No? Anybody online? I don't see anybody. Okay. I'm going to get into councillors' remarks. I'll start with Councillor Bruno in the chamber.
Nothing this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Bodnar.
Nothing here, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Baggett.
Nothing here, Mr. Mayor, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Beauregard.
Same as my fellow councillors.
Thank you. Councillor Demarang.
I don't believe it. I have nothing either. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wells.
I have just one item that came up today. There are some residents on some of the roads in Ward 4 that are concerned about the coyote hunting that's taking place, the competition for the biggest coyote or the most coyotes that are shot. Anyway, they're concerned about the use of high-powered, high-caliber rifles in the area. So I'd just like to bring everybody's attention to that, so that if you see some hunters on the roads, please be careful of what they're doing out there.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Danch.
Thank you for that. I got a couple questions. I spoke with Mason Thomas in regards to the salt dome and the fact that we don't have a dome because it's half blown off. And I know he's been struggling with the supplier installer to try and get this thing fixed. This thing is annoying to no end. I mean, I know the winds have been up, and I don't know if Mason's out there or not, or if Chris wants to help me out here. And like, how long is this gonna take?
Mr. Shapowski?
Yes, through you, your worship, to Councillor Danich. So we do have plans for the contractor to come in next week to start with the repairs on the roof itself. So we're actually just prepping for that now on the site, and which should be correct by the end of next week.
Just wonder if there's any way, like, are we replacing the whole thing, Steve?
Mr. Shapowski?
Through you, your worship. So we are replacing half at this point. That's the plan, is to tie on to the existing half that's still existent, and then replace that section that has torn.
Councillor?
I hope it's still there, because I mean, I was told 2 weeks ago that was gonna get fixed and it's still up in air, but, okay, we'll keep an eye out. I know the area residents are really fed up with listening to it all night long, every night, and it's been going on for obviously some period of time. The only other thing I got is dressing room 4 at the Vale Health and Wellness. There hasn't been a shower nozzle on that for at least 3 weeks. I didn't say anything to anybody. I just played hockey there Friday night. It was nice going in there and not getting, tested for your vaccinations and whatnot. But just the same, if we could look into room 4, because it does work, but there's no nozzle on it and people do silly things. So if you could look into that, I'd appreciate it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shapowski, you'll look into that then?
Yes, we will.
Great, thank you. Okay, so that's it for councillors' items. Consideration of items requiring separate discussion. We have 8.1 is physician recruitment activities update. The recommendation is that Chief Administrative Office Report 2022-17 be received for information. We do have a presentation. I'm going to have councillors Bodner and Bagu move that. And this evening, we have Jill Croteau, Physician Recruitment and Retention Coordinator, Niagara Region Public Health, and Jill will be giving us a presentation. Good evening, Jill.
Good evening, Mayor Steele and City Council. Thank you very much for allowing me to present. I actually have a recording of my presentation, so I will just share my screen here. But before I start, I do want to say that I do highlight some successes in the program, and I have to say that it wouldn't. It's definitely a collaborative effort between the municipality and the region. So I just wanted to thank. The municipalities who are participating in the physician recruitment support and whatnot. So I just wanted to highlight that before I start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep. Just give me one sec here. There we go.
Jill, is there supposed to be sound with us?
There is.
We're seeing it but not hearing it.
Oh, sorry, just 1 second, sorry. Okay, I apologize. You can hear me, but you can't hear my presentation?
That's correct.
Okay.
There's a button there that my clerk is telling me that you can share the sound.
Okay, let's try this again. Some time to present to you tonight.
There you go.
All right. Thank you for allowing me some time to present to you tonight. I wanted to take a bit of time to briefly go over the Niagara Physician Recruitment Program and provide a bit of an overview, some updated stats on the landscape of primary care, and also to provide you with some updates on how the program is looking to meet its objectives for 2022. A brief introduction of the programs and about the program and service. So the program has a full cycle recruitment strategy which strives to create a brand awareness through hosting and attending multiple events throughout the year. Its advertising efforts are very targeted to family medicine residents or those who are in practice outside of Niagara. I also work very closely with Ontario Health, the Ministry, the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario, and Service Canada to ensure that physicians have all the information and documentation for licensing and work permits. I would also ensure that physicians have the resources they need to advertise their practice if they're looking to retire or relocate. So site tours and interviews are really a collaborative effort between the municipalities and the region. So this is where we would work together to showcase a community. Onboarding new physicians is another collaborative effort, which would include making the connections to local recruitment incentives through the city, introductions to public health, hospitals, medical societies, and real estate agents or any other community supports that they're requiring. So as we come full circle, a large focus of the program is to ensure that there's tracking in place to determine what our needs are in each of the communities through environmental scans. I'll get into that a little bit more throughout the presentation. So I wanted to briefly mention some of the program's successes. I've been in this role for over 10 years, and during this time, I've been able to support over 130 physicians to either take over a practice or start one new in the area. This represents just about 55% of the current workforce. So working with Niagara McMaster Campus, so DeGroote School of Medicine, we've had some great successes, and that represents about a third of the new physicians coming into Niagara. The program continues to add physicians who are accepting patients to the list that the region advertises on their website. It's a Find a Doctor page. And also I work very closely with Healthcare Connect to ensure that unattached patients are realigned with primary care providers. So the next few slides, I will go over the landscape of family doctors here in Niagara. So as of February 2022, Niagara has 250 family physicians who are providing consistent primary care. Within that 250, physicians can see their patients in a few different practice models. The most popular model continues to be the Family Health Organization, which represents 41% of the doctors, or a family health organization or family health network with family health team funding, which represents 28%. So between these two different models of care, one family health organization and one is the additional funding from the ministry for the family health team, the majority of candidates who are looking at permanent practice are asking for either of these two models. So at this time, the ministry has a limit on how many of these can be added to the system, but Niagara has been fortunate to be included on a high needs list, so that's helped us with our recruitment efforts. So 17% roster their patients in a family health group, which is a family practice / walk-in clinic, fee-for-service model, but still connected with the group. 6% are within a comprehensive care model or a solo model of care that enroll their patients. And 4% work at a community health center, which is a salaried model and funded outside of the Ministry of Health. 4% are non-enrolling, but they're fee-for-service, so a little bit more difficult to track patients in these models. So Port Colborne is the only has faux practices at this time, which are included in the 41%, which has made it definitely a plus and a tool to recruit doctors into Port Colborne. Out of the 250 family doctors in Niagara, 231 are part of an enrolling model. Those outside of this 92% would be the solo fee-for-service model or the community health center. Through the data that I keep in my program, we estimate that approximately 19% of the 250 physicians are within retirement age. The ministry data supports that the enrolling physicians over 65 have over 60,000 patients in their practice. So this is important to be aware of when we look at succession planning for retiring physicians. We also know from ministry reports that the physicians in Niagara enroll over 330,000 people. So one caveat to this data is that we don't know where these patients are from. So they could be from that municipality, or they could be seen or could be seeing a doctor outside of their municipality. But because Niagara is surrounded by 3 bodies of water, if we look at this from a regional perspective, it's likely closer to an unattached rate than other locations. So this information shows that the doctors in Niagara only have the capacity to enroll 69% of the population. If you use a practice size average of 1,380 for one physician to see 1,380 residents, we should be at around 346 physicians. So with this ratio, we now have a shortage of 96 physicians in Niagara with the new census data. So this number is predicted to rise post-pandemic. So the purpose of these next slides is to bring an awareness of the concept of population-based planning. So every resident in Ontario deserves quality primary care, and that gap serves to further emphasize this. So this slide represents updated population with the updated 2021 census data with an overlay of the number of patients rostered to physicians in this area. It's really to show the gap in population capacity. So for example, Port Colborne has a population of over 20,000 people, and their physicians within this community roster just over 9,000 patients. If you use the population benchmark, it's showing that about 10,000 people are seeking care outside of the community or visiting walk-in clinics, clients of community health centers, or visiting emergencies for their care. So this would indicate that over 54% of the population, at minimum, may be accessing care outside of the city. So this slide looks at it from another perspective through the ratio of physicians to population. If the average practice size is 1,380, then Port Colborne should have 15 doctors. Extra large practices can also skew this number, as it would represent that 2 doctors were to replace 1 doctor if that doctor were to retire. So this slide compares the last 2 graphs from a regional lens. So the population gap shows that the enrolling doctors in Niagara have 330,000 patients rostered. Again, assuming that they're all within Niagara borders, this leaves a gap of about 147,000 people. These people are either seeking care outside the region using walk-in clinics, EDs, urgent care centers, or CHCs. So we can also see that the physician gap with the 250 physicians, it leaves a gap of about 96 people or physicians when the target's 346. So interestingly, when we compare these 2 charts, the gap or the gray zone here, they're very close in size. On the top graph, if you add in the 11,000 community health center clients, they would be almost identical. So I know that there's many caveats to this data, but it's the best that we have at this point and a fairly accurate picture for Niagara. Competition in Ontario. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of key factors here with recruitment of family physicians. Under 400 family medicine physicians graduate in Ontario every year. If you look at the Health Force Ontario hfojobs.ca website, it shows over 2,000 physicians are needed or are being advertised in Southern Ontario alone. So we're clearly not meeting the demand of our communities. We're not producing enough doctors. So just as a summary, our population in Niagara has grown over the past 5 years, over 30,000 people. So we were making some traction until the pandemic hit, and then we had a number of retirements and practice closures. We're in an unprecedented time during the pandemic, and unfortunately, I think it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. We're short 96 physicians to meet the demand of our communities, and this puts pressure on walk-in clinics, urgent care centers, and emergency rooms. So highlighting that a regional approach is needed as patients seek their care across the peninsula. They often cross into different communities in order to obtain a family physician if they don't already have one. There seems to be a wait at present for getting a new family doctor. If you are new to the community, there's a 4 to 6 month wait right now in order to get a first appointment if you're looking to become a new patient of a physician. So again, Niagara strives to attract growth for businesses. So just to put a little bit of an economic development slant on this, this is going to in turn affect our ability to potentially attract new people and businesses to Niagara. So how are we going to meet these goals in 2022? So this is our final chapter. What are we doing to minimize this gap? So a little bit about the demographics of the physicians that were coming into Niagara in the past 5 years. It seems like there's some trends happening here. So McMaster is still at the top of the list. 33% of the physicians coming in within the past 5 years are from the McMaster program. 26% are within Ontario, so not necessarily with McMaster, but within Ontario. 23% are from the US. 11% are from the UK. 4% are from Australia, and 3% are from outside of Ontario in other areas of Canada. So we've started to meet quarterly with our regional physician recruitment committee to discuss opportunities and to give updates and provide feedback. So in response to this data, we are looking to capitalize on some recent trends and are hoping to attract and repatriate physicians from outside of Canada back into Canada. So some of the municipalities will be partnering with me on some of these events, such as the Rural Medicine Week and some local McMaster events, and then the rest I will be doing on my own. So we have tweaked the recruitment strategy a bit for 2022. The program has a new brand with a fresh logo and theme. The plan is to increase awareness through some social media and digital platforms just to showcase these opportunities. We're moving into more of a digital world, and the pandemic has really highlighted that. Through these efforts, along with the updated event plan, the hopes are high to repatriate some of those who have studied abroad, as well as those through the local medical schools. So it's important to connect with them and show them the path to come home. Now that things are opening up a bit more, we plan to continue to engage with the local medical school and showcase and highlight opportunities. I think it's also important for everyone to understand this gap in service and the challenges that are associated with it. And finally, the regional program continues to work collaboratively with municipalities to identify options. So Bram, Scott, and I have set up regular meetings, and we continue to work with developers locally to help address the physician shortage in Port Colborne. So thank you very much. I will open it now for questions or comments.
Great, Jill. Thank you. Great presentation. At this time, the only one that has shown interest of a question so far is Councillor Bruno. So I'll go to him first.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Jill, for the excellent presentation. Jill, one of the things, and if I missed it, I'm sorry about that, but when you talked about the need in Port Colborne for 15 family physicians to cover that population, I didn't recall you saying how many we do have in terms of family physicians here.
9.
9. Very good. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was
great.
It.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor Desmarais, then Councillor Bodner. Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Jill. Jill, thank you so much for the presentation. I do have a question about why we're not producing enough doctors. You did mention that we weren't, and I'm wondering, does it have to do with not enough spaces available within the universities, or is there another reason? Is there any thinking on that?
That's a very good question, and I don't know if I have the answer to that. That's probably one that can be addressed maybe at the provincial level. Locally, I think that I mean, they definitely have their challenges, but I think that they do need to rotate the family medicine residents through the different specialties. So whether or not that has something to do with it, that there's not enough teaching opportunities for people, or for them to partner with some of the specialties. But that's a very good question.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bodner?
Angie asked the question I was going to ask, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Great minds think alike, right, Councillor? I know Councillor Bruno does have a question to Mr. Cotton. Councillor Bruno?
Thank you. Not as much a question as a thank you. Because of COVID, the committee has not been able to meet, and Bram and Mr. Louie have picked up the slack on that. And if you see in the report this evening, I know members of the committee, and I'm sure councils that are on the committee and councillors in general, would like to thank both of you. The report does indicate to the public that we have a line on a doctor coming this fall. so that hopefully we'll bring it up to 10 and get us closer. But thank you for minding the fort and carrying on with Jill and working it with the committee being not able to meet because of COVID. So thank you, Bram. Thank you, Mr. Louie.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further questions, Jill, we really appreciate it, all the hard work you're doing with our senior staff here, with Bram and Scott, so we thank you, and we look for some really good things moving as we move forward and attracting physicians to Port Colborne and Niagara, because we know it is a Niagara-wide issue for us down here, so we really, again, appreciate the work that you're doing. That being Yep, thank you. That being said, all in favor, please raise your hand. And that's carried. Item 8.2, pop-up patio review and recommendations. The recommendation is that the Chief Administrative Office Report 2022-54 be received, and that the recommendations outlined in Appendix A to Chief Administrative Office Report 2022-54 be approved and adopted as a city policy, that the council approve discontinuing encroachment application COVID-19, and that patio fees for 2022 be waived. I have Councillors Wells and Bruno moving this. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have just one question. And some compliments to Bram and the rest that worked on this. For consistency purposes, could it be possible, or could it be considered to have a standard agreement document drafted up that would be used for the neighbors to sign when they agree to allow the patio to be in front of their place? Just something that's consistent, easy, that they could put in place with the application form. It gets submitted, and then there's no questions about what they're submitting in regards to that.
Mr. Cotton?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Wells. Yes, absolutely, that can be done, and I'll include that as we move forward.
Councillor?
That's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Mr. Cotton. The concern I raised a couple of weeks ago was, for me, the issue of where either neighboring businesses agree or the neighboring property owner agrees to extend the patio. And I'd like a clarification on, are both the landowner, from whom we have an ability to take action against if things go wrong, or insurance, things like that, and the tenant, I want to avoid the city being in the middle of a he said, she said, you only got the signature of the owner of the property and versus the tenant, or the tenant on a joint patio leaves, moves out. I'd just like to see that where there are adjoining businesses and then the neighbor gives permission, that if it's another business, like these, if they're a joint patio, I think both need to have insurance. If there's, the neighbor says okay to the original patio owner, that the landlord and the business have to sign off. Perhaps you could clarify me how that works, because my concern is that if somebody leaves town and the patio's still there and we're not covered, we're in the middle of that mix. So I just like to ensure that all bases are covered between tenant and landlord.
Mr. Cotton?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So in our application process, if you are the business, you have to, and you would like a pop-up patio, you have to have the permission signed to us by the property owner. So I believe, I'm hoping that answers your question, that we would not be in the middle of it, that both the owner and the business would be the applicant, or the business has to provide proof that the owner of the building has approved it as well.
And just finally then, if the neighboring business agrees, also his landlord has to agree? to extend the
We can certainly add that into the application, if it's the will of council. That's not an issue. It would not have been in there, but it certainly can be added. It would make sense for consistency's sake, as well.
I would like to put that forward. I'm concerned if the landlord is absentee in another city, it's a rental property for him, business owner is making the deal in absence of the landlord knowing, and if things happen, we're in the middle of it. So I'd like to see that. I don't know if we need a motion or that to be added, Mr. Mayor, or?
Yeah, we can just take it as direction? That's fine?
Okay, great.
So Mr. Cotton, with regards to that, so if there's neighbors on either side that, if it's the building owner and the business owner at the same time, obviously it's one person, but if it's a building owner and then he has another tenant, whether it's retail, restaurant, whatever it may be, that the two entities have to sign off. So if you can take that as direction from council, is that all right, council, with that? Some nodding heads, I see that, okay. You're all right with that, Mr. Cotton?
To you, Mr. Mayor, yes, absolutely. We'll take that back.
Perfect, thank you.
And just one final one, Mr. Mayor. So the insurance, naming us as a named insured, is in the applicant's name, nothing to do with the property owner. Is that correct?
Mr. Cotton?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have the application right in front of me, so I apologize. I'm not 100% sure, but for consistency's sake, we can ensure that is done as well.
Are you, Councillor, are you asking for the applicant for the patio? Is that who you're asking for?
Yes, where I was really going, despite whatever answer Mr. Cotton gave, I just wanted to make sure that we've cleared that with our solicitor, that in that final agreement, that's the proper thing to protect the city.
Okay.
So if this gets lawyered up, the agreement, and they're okay, I'm okay.
Which I believe if you're continuing with pretty much the same agreements that you've had, Mr. Cotton, that has gone through our solicitor, correct?
That would be correct.
Yeah, so that has gone through, so yes.
I'm fine.
Good,
Thank you,
thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor.
Councillors, any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, it's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 8.3, Sponsorship and Partnership Program. Recommendation that Corporate Services Department Report 2022-51 be received. That the Participate Package Sponsorship and Partnership rates outlined in Appendix A to Corporate Services Department Report 2022-51 be approved. That the amendments made to Schedule E of the User Fees and Charges Bylaw 6949/95/21 as outlined in Appendix A to Corporate Services Department Report 2022-51 be approved, and that the updated Schedule E of the User Fees and Charges Bylaw be included in a future amendment to Bylaw 6949/95/21. I have Councillors Wells and Bagu moving that. I'm going to I have Councillor Bruno moving that with Councillor Bodner. If I can have Councillor Bruno go first.
Thank you, Worship. Most of my questions were answered since I filed my desire to lift this, so I would really like to just thank Luke and Mr. Bowles. I mean, I think this report is written like every report should be. It's got a starting point to get this program off the ground. It's innovative. It talks about added value. There's a value proposition. I think it's great work. I think it's fantastic for sponsors of Canal Days, especially if they can get ICE logos or placards in there at a 50% discount. You've looked at what other municipalities charge, even though Canal Days is a rather unique event. We probably should be at the high end of that. I'm not sure if we are, but I just think it's a great value and a great report. So just thank you to Luke and Brian.
Thank you, Councillor. Further questions, Council? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried unanimously. 8.5. Procedural bylaw update. Recommendation that Development and Legislative Services Department Report 2022-57 be received. That the draft procedural bylaw attached as Appendix A of Development and Legislative Services Department Report 2022-57 be approved, and that a bylaw be brought forward to the Mayor and City Clerk to sign. I have Councillor Wells and Bagu on this one. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's very important that these procedural changes that we have are acknowledged or recognized by the citizens within Port Colborne, and especially those that are watching, because we need to ensure that when we put these changes in place, that they are transparent. So that is one of the reasons why I wanted this item specifically discussed, so that those that are watching, those that are that read the minutes after tonight, are aware that there's nothing that is being done behind closed doors. This is all transparent, that all these changes are there, and I would encourage our citizens to take a look at the changes, take a look at where the changes are, and see how they will impact us going forward.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bagu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I don't know how to address Amber, as Madam Clerk or Amber, so I'm a little confused right now, but.
Still a clerk. Madam Clerk would be good.
Okay, so Madam Clerk. Under number 16, electronic participation, we talk about the Zoom and stuff like this, how we're doing it tonight. When council goes back to full, I guess the regulations allow for a full council in City Hall, is Zooming by a councilor still allowed if they prefer, like say they're gonna go on vacation or something, or they can't make it or something to City Hall? Are they allowed to still the meeting?
Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Through the chair, currently the amendment to the bylaw that was originally passed in March of 2020, which was put in this bylaw, permitted virtual meetings only under an emergency situation. So it wouldn't be a regular occurrence. And I have mentioned before to council that it is an increased staff capacity to run these meetings. So we are hoping to get back in chambers within the next few months. And when that happens, it will be fully in person with no virtual option. That being said, the acting city clerk is working on options for virtual meetings, which she will bring as a report to council. And if they would like that added feature, she will give all the options available and council can make a decision.
Councillor?
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. One more question on behalf of Councillor Clearly. She's on it. I talked to her, she's on her way for her shoulder surgery today, so she asked me to ask this question. Proxy voting in a municipal council, is that allowed, or is that legislated not allowed, or say council can't make it, but something's coming up that's plain and important to a certain ward, maybe one of the ward councilors can't make it to the meeting? Are proxy votes allowed at council meetings?
Through the chair, no, they're not.
Okay, that's a big no, I guess. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm done.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions? Seeing none, please raise your hand for those that are in favor. And that's carried unanimously. Item 8.8, the 2022 Beach Plan, and the recommendation is that Corporate Services Department Report 2022-56 be received for information purposes. I have Councillors Bruno and Beauregard moving that. Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. In principle, I support this report. We had a successful year last year. I think the tweaking's been good. I think the management's been good. I think all of us have complimented how 2021 went. I like the direction in a slow, gradual approach to some expansion and more numbers being allowed at Nickel Beach. The one thing I would like to ask either Mr. Bowles or Blair, who's ever going to take this, is we're soon going to be re-looking at the road ends and road allowances in beaches, and we are going to have some signage there. I think when we have capacity issues, it would be great if on the road end signs regarding the beach and the rules regarding road allowances, whether it's high wind, strong undertow, littering, all kinds of things, could we look at directing people to our public beaches? And I say Nickel Beach in this, but I'll let others if they want to comment on Centennial. I always think if you're going to turn somebody away, let's not turn them away from the community because they're full. Let's get them to one of our beaches. So through you to Mr. Bowles or Blair, I'm just wondering if we could put some wording on road end signs and perhaps a QR code where the people arriving and parking's full, the beach is packed, can know that there is Nickel Beach, how to get there, picture comes up on their phone, and we're keeping the person in Port Colborne rather than say just goodbye, we're full.
Mr. Bowles?
Yeah, through yourself, Mayor, to the councilor and council. It wasn't originally on our work plan, but it is a great idea. And we will we'll take that on as staff to get signs put at those road ends that identify specifically Nickel Beach. And the QR code is an added thing that we can definitely look at to be able to take them right to our website so they can get a ticket and come on out and enjoy the beach.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions? Seeing none, please raise your hand if in favor. That's carried unanimously. Item 9.4, this is pulled to pass the motion for the invitation from Regional Council to participate in Indigenous education training. We have Councillors Desmarais and Beauregard moving this. So it was a letter from the region. Are there any questions on this one? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. Item 9.5 is a letter from Pelham in support of St. Catharines regarding acts of violence, harassment, and intimidation against elected officials and government employees. We did receive a letter from St. Catharines originally. This is another letter from, or a letter from Pelham stating their support. So if I could have Councillors Danch and Desmarais move that we provide our support as well on this. Is that okay, Councillors? Okay, Councillor, thank you. Any questions on this letter? So this will be in support of St. Catharines. Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. And that's carried. Okay, so we're on motions. Item 17.1 is the memorandum from Councillor Desmarais. Motion to dissolve Ontario Land Tribunal. To get it on the floor, I'll ask Councillors Desmarais and Bodner to put it on the floor. Questions to this? Anyone online? I have Councillor Bagu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment and then a question, I guess, for the CAO. In the motion, it states that municipalities have the authority to enforce our provincial approved official plans, and many more units of housing could be built without further delay. So my question, I guess, to the CAO is, has the Ontario Land Tribunal or the ALPAT hindered housing in Park Colborne?
CAO?
Sure, through your worship to Councillor Bagu, it's a good question. It's a very interesting question. My quick answer would probably be no, not in recent memory, But really, that's a function of whether an application is appealed, and if that appealing agency is either A, the developer, or B, some opponent to the application. So many times, and then there hasn't been very many plans of subdivision before council lately, other than renewals of existing ones. Many times council doesn't approve a development, and the developer is the one who takes it to, sorry, when I say many times, I mean many times in Ontario, not in Port Colborne. The developer is the one who makes the appeal and tries to get the LPAT to push forward or advance the development, even though the council of the municipality didn't want that. The opposite is also true. Sometimes council approves what is before them, the proposal, but some group from the community, such as neighbors or a different developer or some other stakeholder, appeals, and that can in fact slow down a development that otherwise was moving ahead with council approval. That's, I think, a more common, that meets more what you described, where LPAT stands in the way of the progress of a development. That has not been the case in Port Colborne in recent memory.
Councillor?
Okay, thank you, Mr. CEO. Just a comment. We were asking for the Ontario Land Tribunal to be, I guess, taken away, gone. But, you know, in society nowadays, there's always an appeal process. Even our court system has an appeal process where if you don't like the decision, there's at least one more step you can go to appeal the decision. And by getting rid of by all the municipalities just asking for the Ontario Land Tribunal to be, I guess, disbanded, my concern is there won't be an appeal process for a resident or a business to further their, you know, the city makes mistakes, you know, we all know that, and residents make mistakes, and sometimes it's nice to have the appeal system somewhere. From my reading of the Ontario Land Tribunal, it seems like the city of Toronto has its own appeal system. They don't go to the Ontario Land Tribunal. So I'm hoping if it does pass and all the municipalities in Ontario, there is an appeal system somewhere put in for residents or developers, Mr. Mayor. So I'm good, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wells?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a follow-up with the question that Councillor Bagu just asked. And it would go through you to the CAO. If the land tribunal is done away with, is there any other option for people to appeal this a final decision, or will that just be final and that's it and done with?
Mr. CAO?
Sure, through your worship to Councillor Wells, also a good question. I might defer to planning staff if they are on this call. I think the only appeal beyond the LPAT is an order from court, like a court order, a justice's review of the LPAT's decision. The interesting thing here, and the councillor who put forward the motion might want to respond to some of council's questions here and sort of talk about what the vision was behind the motion, because I certainly couldn't speak to that. LPAT hears more than just planning appeals. Well, I guess what was the OMB and turned into various acronyms along the way, heard more than just planning appeals. Sometimes bylaws are appealed, some election, I don't have everything right in front of me, boundaries and certain things to do with elections, not election results, obviously. Many things go before what was the OMB. So, and those, and presumably in the absence of LPAT, would have to go somewhere too. But I think that there is, that court in Ontario is the only avenue for appeal beyond LPAT. But if David Schultz or anyone is on the call, they might have an answer. I'm not sure if staff are on the call today.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Through the chair, the CAO is correct that the OLT is the final appeal board other than going through court.
Okay, great, thank you. I have Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, my questions were asked by the other two councillors, but my concern was that really is that will it make it more expensive for someone to try to appeal something? You know, you're talking about going to court. I have no idea whether that's harder than this tribunal. I'll wait to hear. Maybe somebody's got that answer. Thank you.
Mr. CAO, do you have anything on that one?
Sorry, if I understand the question, it's about the cost through the mayor to Councillor Bonner, the cost being different in the absence of LPAT or more cost prohibitive? Yes. So I can't say for sure, you know, I guess it would depend on the, you know, breadth and depth of the appeal. Sometimes a municipality or some other stakeholder is before LPAT and has to bring expert advice with them, such as a professional planner or a legal representative, a solicitor, and some appeals can be in the neighborhood of $8,000 to $10,000 a day and weeks long. Big industrial operators, wineries in the north end of Niagara, when appeals go on, I think the costs are $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. That's not to say, you know, the cost of an appeal today is $100. If you come into the second floor of City Hall to appeal a decision of the Committee of Adjustment or City Council, it's $100. It used to be $100. I'm sure it's quite close to $100. And you can show up and stand at the podium with no representation. So it really is a question of scope and scale of what the appeal is before council. So I'm sorry if that is a vague answer, but it's relative.
Councillor?
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Desmarais?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe I could address a couple of the comments by my fellow councillors. I just want to make it very clear that the main thought behind this motion is to get the provincial government to understand that the Ontario Land Tribunal is not serving us very well at all. It's just making things more costly, and there are better ways to do it. So I don't for 1 minute think that the provincial government will take this motion from us and say, okay, we're going to dissolve it and we won't replace it with anything else, we'll just go along our merry old way. I highly doubt that that would ever happen. And this particular motion is all about planning decisions. And if you read the motion, you can very easily see, you know, what's being meant by the motion. But it's about an extra layer of, I don't want to say oversight, but it's just an extra layer of intervention that maybe is not needed at all, but certainly needs to be looked at, examined, and I believe rewritten. That's the real meaning behind the motion, is to get the provincial government to look at this and do it better. It's in a situation right now where it's really a money grab, and that's really what it is. We're all working out of the same toolbox. So it's not making sense that we would just do this one time and then one time a little higher above, and then one more time a little higher above. That makes no sense. It really, this is about getting the province to look at what they're doing and, you know, truly examine it, provide us with something better. That's the real heart of the motion. That's all I want to say.
Great, thank you. Councillor Beauregard?
Through your worship, I have a hard time supporting this motion when it explicitly states that it requests that the OLT immediately be eliminated. And that seems to contradict what Councillor Desmarais had said. So if it were saying exactly what Councillor Desmarais had said, then I would maybe be a little bit more inclined to support the motion, but I don't support it being resolved.
Okay, thank you. I have Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. Excellent questions, most of which I had and are unanswered or we're unsure of. I think to have something of this magnitude come to the city without a report from, of all people, our planning department, we're, I think, not doing our due diligence. So I'd like to put a motion to defer to planning and come back with a report. Refer. Beg your pardon, Mr. Mayor. So refer this to planning and come back hopefully in 2 weeks, if that's possible.
Okay, can I get a seconder for referral to planning staff? Councillor Wells, I have. Madam Clerk, do you want to take this, or do you want me to talk to Mr. Lawson about this? So that'd be Amber. Well, it's
No, I'm getting confused about the word
three
clerk as
clerks,
well.
but yeah, you're the Madam Clerk right now.
Thank you. Through the chair, Scott Lawson will be taking this on. And because reports are due tomorrow, I will be for the April 12th council meeting.
Okay, is that fine, Councillor? Yep. Councillor Wells, that's fine for April 12th with you? Okay, there is no debate on referral. So we have a motion on the floor to refer this back to staff for a report on the motion that's brought forward by Councillor Desmarais. That'll go to planning through Mr. Lawson. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that's carried. Members of council, I'd like to bring a notice of motion forward, but at the same time I need to waive our procedural bylaw so that we can actually bring a notice of motion and then bring the motion forward because of its time sensitivity with regards to the Ukraine. So if I could have councillors Bodner and Bagu move to waive procedural bylaw in order for myself to do this. Is that okay, councillors? I see them nodding their heads. Okay. So all those in favor of waiving procedural bylaw, please raise your hand. That's carried. And then if I can have councillors Bodner and Bagu move the following. Whereas Ukraine is facing an unprecedented and unjustified attack on their people, their sovereignty, and their territory, and whereas the actions by Russia are in violation of international law and the UN Charter, and is an attack on democracy and freedom, one that will have catastrophic consequences, putting countless civilian lives at risk, and whereas the city of Port Colborne stands with the people of Ukraine, Ukrainian communities across Niagara, and those around the world in strongly condemning this brazen and unprovoked attack, whereas the city stands for pursuing a course of peace and understanding that relegates war to the past. Therefore, be it resolved that the City of Port Colborne show support for the strict sanctions the federal government has imposed on Russia and join the call for immediate cessation of all military activity and instead pursue a diplomatic resolution. And be it further resolved that the City call on the federal government to welcome those fleeing the conflict with Ukraine into our country with open arms. Any questions on that, councillors? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. And that is carried unanimously. I really appreciate that, council. So with that being said, are there any notices of motion tonight? I don't see any. Okay. We have one set of minutes and boards of committees, the Port Colborne Historical Marine Museum, minutes January 18th, 2022. If I can have councillors Beauregard and Desmarais move that. Are there any questions on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. And that's carried. Bylaws. Council, I'm going to move them in block, but I know there is a question on one of the bylaws. So if I could have councillors Wells and Danch move bylaws 20.1, 20.2, 20.3, 20.4, and 20.5. And then I'll call on councillor Wells for his question on bylaw 20.3. Councillor Wells?
Thank you, Your Worship. Not so much more a question on there is a question, sorry about that. The question through you to Alana Vanderveen, the drain superintendent. The question is that the Michener drain went to a tribunal, and the tribunal came back with a decision after the May 7th, 2020 report that we're looking at tonight, which has some impact. I would like, if possible, if Alana could identify the impacts that has, and if they are being considered in what we're looking at tonight.
Ms. Vanderveen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Wells. Prior to the OMAFRA tribunal, there was the quarter revision, as you know. The quarter revision dollars were very minimal that were affecting the entire watershed. The report that is being adopted reflects those changes. After the Court of Revision was the tribunal, and the tribunal had no monetary changes within the report. The only changes were a few of the errors that were made with the wrong pipe length, a couple of other little things, items in the report that didn't reflect what the drawings were saying. So there were very minimal changes that were made that way. The biggest thing with the tribunal decision was that the tribunal stated that we have to wait to perform any type of construction on the Michener drain until the Wignall drain is complete.
Councillor?
And that is where I'm asking, is there any financial or operational impacts related to having the Wignall done before the Michener?
Ms. Vanderveen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't entirely know how to answer that question. There won't be any, sorry. Ask your question again, please.
Since the tribunal came back with the order that we had to finish the Wignall modifications before the Michener, will that cause any impact on the cost to do the Michener, or to cause any delays or anything with regards to having the maintenance completed?
Ms. Vanderveen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So as far as any extra cost to the Michener when we're able to complete that, with the price increase of fuel and whatnot, there may be extra costs. We may be slightly over the estimated price that is in the report now. I don't know how long it will be before we actually get to complete that. It may be a year, 2 years, 3 years, depending on if there is a court of revision and a tribunal process for the Wignall drain.
Councillor?
Okay, thank you.
Great. Council, any further questions either on that bylaw or any others? Seeing none, please raise your hand. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. There are no confidential items, there's no procedural motions, and there are no information items this evening. So that brings us to the end of our meeting. Council, thank you, and we thank the public for watching this evening. As we said earlier, please keep the people of Ukraine in your hearts. Not a good situation, as we all have seen on the TV. So this time I call for adjournment of this meeting. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you.